This industry comes with incredible bias towards, favoring the white, male, confident entrepreneur who has a big, bright vision. And women are just actually much more down to earth, much more specific, much more focused. We are taught to be this way, right? Especially in paternalistic societies such as Brazil, or I don't know if India is just like we are, but here there is a very important challenge to overcome. And I think women are taught that they need to be polite and they need to be very timid and be in their own position there, as much more to serve the family than to be the leader of a family, of a business. Good leaderships, they adapt to the context that you're at, right? And you need to have that chameleon mindset, but still very much within your true self, right? What's the way that you want to come across, and not necessarily wanting to mold a male behavior.
Thanks, Bianca, for joining us in this interview series. We are very excited to learn about your journey and about what you are doing and have been doing in the past, because the topic that we're trying to address is the billion-dollar question that people have in their minds, that why is there such less gender representation at the top in the world of investing, and more so freshers. Women freshers have this question that what do I look for myself in a particular role? I can't see a clear path for myself. There are no role models. So how is it that you have built your journey, and what were the challenges you encountered while climbing up the ladder?
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to share a little bit of my own trajectory, and hopefully also potentially be an example to other women who want to be in this journey, in this career path. Yeah, I would say, well, growing up in Brazil, it has definitely not been a linear and easy path reaching the current position that I'm at. I'd say that there are some important challenges from a societal perspective, right? And I think that we have to acknowledge that to be able to understand how women can get to leadership positions, especially in the investment world. I would say that about 10, 15 years ago, not only was venture capital not a reality in Brazil, but the representation of women was just very scarce, right? You wouldn't have that representation. It would be white, male, privileged people who came from the financial background to be able to have those positions. In my journey, I'd say that role models have been a very important aspect in making me understand that this could be a reality. Very early on in my career, I studied business here in Brazil, and very early on I got introduced to a nonprofit organization called Endeavor that really lives to this day by the a motto of, it's important to have role models so you can understand how to actually reach that position. And that was very inspirational to me. Entrepreneurship was not even a possibility. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. My father was a doctor, my mom is a journalist, both of them very driven in their careers. But when I thought of potentially becoming an entrepreneur myself or dealing with entrepreneurs, this was very far off from my reality. And Endeavor showed me in a very powerful way through examples that people, with diverse backgrounds could actually become entrepreneurs. That was very inspirational for me early on, and it made me realize that I could too create my own path, that it could be original, that I could, if I had resilience and if I was determined enough, that I could reach that position. I think one clear example, and it's actually a very inspirational story to me, is of a group of female founders from Rio de Janeiro who created a beauty chain called Beleza Natural, and they came from the slums from Rio de Janeiro, very humble background, and they actually created a very interesting beauty chain for women with curly hair. They invested their whole savings to actually reach a position in which they could expand the business. Till this day, I'm friends with the CEO and co-founder of this business, and she has reached levels of influence and impact that are very important to me, and it has really been for me an inspiration.
Got it. And how did you explore this startup? Because finding some of the gems in this industry is also equally very difficult, and especially some of them which are led by women. So, how did you come across the startup since you already mentioned about it?
Yeah, again, I would say that the importance of having organizations who can show you those perspectives, right? To me, it was really hard to even reach those examples, and I think Endeavor was my channel. To be very honest with you, I studied business in a very privileged university, private university here in Brazil, but most people actually wanted very traditional careers in banking or multinational companies and consumer goods, but there was really no clear path for a woman who wanted either to become entrepreneur or to actually go into entrepreneurship, innovation, or the venture capital industry. So I'd say that again, my main point here is that example is really important, and the environment really helps you understand what are the options that you can take. So I think Endeavor was definitely it for me.
Got it, got it. And since you mentioned that you have been from a good family background where your parents were equally driven, so I'm assuming that your growth also would naturally have been on a good trajectory. But is that so in this society of Brazil as a country? How is it that you witness more women investors or leaders coming up the ladder as opposed to the male counterparts?
It's definitely not a reality, right? And I really acknowledge my place of privilege. I think that in comparison to even other women in Brazil, I was very fortunate to have had a very good education, have studied in private schools. Unfortunately, public education in Brazil nowadays, especially in high school, it's not at the same level as private education. So if you don't have access to it, actually it's much harder for you to get into good universities and be able to grow up that ladder. In that sense, I would say that there are important organizations. I will actually mention another one called Fundação Estudar. It's a foundation focused on providing scholarships to low-income students and women as well in particular. Actually, this year was the very first one that for the first time more candidates were women than men here, and they got approved. So important work such as the ones that Fundação Estudar does in Brazil and emerging markets in particular is very important to bridge this gap that unfortunately exists. Radhika, I will say that now, and I'm starting to get involved with lots of different groups of women in VC or women leaders in the country. I would say that this is very recent phenomenon in Brazil. For the past 2 to 3 years, the women have started to get together and influence each other and show that this is a possibility. But still, if you think about the percentage of women that are represented in these positions and in venture capital in particular, it's just a small subset of the reality, right, of the total professionals in this industry. So still we have a long ways to go, and I would absolutely say that the work of nonprofit organizations and individuals is very important in making sure that we invest in these women to make sure they get to that position.
Right. I'm sure that it's good that we've at least gotten started into this, and I will sure get to a position where we see some kind of equality. But like you mentioned, there are already groups of women that are being formed where they can influence each other. So when we speak of this, how do you think that women can influence other women leaders better than having men in the room? Because there is a psychological fact that we as women tend to find our comfort zone around other women who are of like our same gender and not different. So how is it that this is seen in and around your surroundings?
Yeah. Well, look, I think that the work that you are doing and asking women to share their own stories and their vulnerabilities, I think that that's where we should start, right? Again, if other women see that they have similar struggles than others who have actually made it, they can understand that it's possible. So I think influence is really important, and it's based out of a place of vulnerability, of intellectual honesty, of really being able to pull the other one up, right, and be proactive about it. So I'm very happy to be part of these organizations. There's one in particular that I'd love to give a shout out to, which is called Female Force LATAM. I was invited by one of our associates in the venture capital firm to be a part of it, and it's really made me it fulfills my day whenever I am able to mentor a woman entrepreneur who is actually preparing herself to fundraise, and just being honest and open about the dynamics that are involved, right, in preparing and actually sharing your story in an incisive way, but being able to play the VC game. I think that just coming from that place of honesty and wanting to help genuinely is really important. So Female Force LATAM does a magnificent job of helping these women who are in the process of fundraising to get mentors and be as prepared as they can.
Got it. Yeah, I'm sure that people who are listening from your country would be happy to join a community like this, and I'm glad that you give them a shout out. But like you said, that the community helps other women fundraise. But tell me that people who form this community or form this kind of a business of a community, can they fundraise for that kind of a business?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So, like you said, that the community helps other women leaders get funds, right? But somebody who's building a community like that, for example, the founder of this community who leads, can they
Yeah.
fundraise themselves for this kind of a business model where they get women together and form communities?
I mean, yeah, it's a challenge, right? And again, I think one aspect that I will say is important, and I, again, in the organizations that I've been a part of and in my personal trajectory, when a woman needs a support system, and most likely will come from from peers, from other women, but I think it's as important to actually get support from a group of I would say men need to support women, period. And I think that in this organization, as well as at Endeavor, I've seen men stand up for other women and making sure that we bridge this gap. So I think that to get access to funding in an organization such as this one, as Female Force LATAM, I think that you need the support from a broader set of people in network, including men, right? So I think that it's just as important. And I've been fortunate to see, and so many people in my own career have been men supporting my own journey. So I think that aspect is important to mention.
Yeah, now that you've already spoken of this instance where men have supported you in your journeys, which is like not likely to be seen in other spheres of careers for different women, can you cite some examples where you got the support and the push to do better or to climb up the ladder?
Yeah, again, I think in my own trajectory, I have had potentially what 4 to 5 men as my leaders, and just about a couple of women leaders, like two, right? Which I think is representative of what we are seeing of the breakdown of leaders between on a gender based basis. And those men have been very important in mentoring me, in showing me, what were the hurdles, what were my own gaps in my development, and have really extended, like reached out for me and extended their hand to actually support me, vouch for me, right, when the moment would come for a promotion or for a leadership position. So I think that it's a mentality aspect, and we need men to understand that there is this gap, and that women who are really capable and who are really determined, they can absolutely reach that level. So I can only say that I was very fortunate to have those people who would see the gap, who would want me to grow, and would just make an effort to vouch for me.
Yeah, yeah. But we spoke of this environment being fortunate for you, but unfortunately, there are some unfortunate environments also for people, generally speaking. But they're equally ambitious and driven, but they don't get the support always. So, how is it that they can push themselves to thinking that, it's fine that whatever is coming my way, and even if it's not fine for them, how is it that they can really fight against the norm and yet make a position for themselves? I know it'll be difficult for you to answer this because you haven't faced it yourself, but this is what we are generally facing. So anything you have to say on that?
Yeah. Again, and recognizing that I come definitely from a privileged position, I I know that this is a very important hurdle, in particular in our countries, right? When we talk about India and Brazil, and I believe that it's important, well, first of all, for people to believe, for women to believe that it is possible, to believe in themselves, um, and to um, and to find champions. I think that it's really important. Not only we've been talking about some institutions who are able to help, so I would absolutely try to make that research and understand who is able to help, either from a financial perspective, from a mentoring capacity, but also individual champions, people who will be personal mentors. In my own career, my own life, I've searched for people who would help me throughout my journey, and be able to reach the places where I would want to be. One example is actually a mentor that I have who's originally from India. He's living in Silicon Valley right now, and he paid for my tuition at a fellowship program focused on venture capital. I did not have the money to do that course. I would not be able to actually complete that formation, and he extended, again, as I said, as a mentor, as a philanthropist. He actually extended his hand out to me and said, Bianca, I'm sure that you are going to pay it forward, and you'll be able to have that impact back in your country. So I'm happy to contribute and pay for your tuition. And guess what, Radhika? I think this course has been crucial in my own journey as a venture capitalist. Had I not, concluded it, I would not be able to be here today. So again, it might seem simplistic in that sense, but I would say that women need to believe in themselves. They need to be able to be outspoken and talk about their own dreams and wishes, where they want to go, and find champions who will be able to support them in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that you took that example, because that also sends a signal that it's important to have mentors and not just lead your journey single-handedly. You can always get benefited from a second-hand perspective, and the perspective which is having more wisdom and experience attached to it. So,
Yeah.
and which course was that? I mean, I'm just trying to understand what kind of course was it?
Yeah, of course. It's a fellowship. It's called Kaufman Fellows. It's focused on we they mention it as a fitness behavior program for venture capitalists, and they really gather people from all over the world, venture capitalists who are willing to disrupt, to change, to improve the venture capital industry. When I joined the program, I was still at Endeavor, so I was participating from a place of helping to build entrepreneurial ecosystems. But it was incredible for me to understand the nuances of venture capital, how actually it would be able to propel the growth of many companies in emerging markets. And it sparked me the clear idea that this is where I wanted to be after my journey at Endeavor. Not only it gave me that perspective, it also gave me an important network. And I think we can talk about the importance of networks for a long time, because I'm a real believer that they are, having a very good, strong, not only peer network, but support system is really crucial in your journey.
Yeah, that's extremely right. And do you think what you learned in fellowship, had you done an MBA, would you have gotten the same kind of learning? Do you think there is a gap when it comes to practical deal environment learning in schools or colleges?
Yeah, I did not I did not study from master's, right, for an MBA. So for me, Kaufman Fellows truly had that perspective. It was my MBA in many ways, but I would say mostly from a network perspective, and also from a leadership development perspective. In terms of hard skills, I would say that my MBA was Endeavor, because at Endeavor, we would select and support founders from 40 plus countries, and just understanding the challenges that they were going through and being able to be there in the day to day. That helped me understand the dynamics and the specifics of an investment into high growth companies. I was in particular at Endeavor, I was able to co-build a program. We would call it mentor capital program, in which we would actually match a mentor with a founder and have them understand the specifics of a term sheet and how to negotiate the best terms and deals, and what would be the ideal venture capital firm for your industry, for your company, based on the thesis of different funds. So understanding the VC game, the parameters there, that helped me understand as well, from in a very pragmatic or practical way. And so that's what I would say was my MBA. But for women wanting to understand VC venture capital, there's just so much out there, and I think we all have to go after knowledge, be in a constant journey to learn. And so one book that was a very important example, a very important content for me, was Venture Deals from Brad Feld. And I think that he writes from a very interesting perspective of founders know what a VC is thinking, know the terms in advance. And so I think it's a very important book for any founder wanting to get access to fundraising, or potentially any women or anyone who wants to get into the VC world.
Understood. But when we speak of, women pitching in the VC world, do you think that the way women founders pitch is much different than male pitching? Because usually the men look at the bigger picture and present their business in a much larger than life manner, unlike women who don't like to speak of their achievements, I mean, forget about them speaking of the future. They don't even like speaking of their achievements. So how do you adapt?
Yes, this is a very important point, Radhika. I'm happy you mentioned, because I think biases are one of the main challenges that we need to overcome. And this industry comes with incredible bias towards, just favoring, the white male confident entrepreneur who has a big, bright vision. And women are just actually much more down to earth, much more specific, much more focused. And until we are able to talk about those biases and understand the true criteria, the true drivers of growth of a business, and what are we really looking for, and this is gender agnostic, right? And until we talk about those things, I think that we will, as an industry, will continue to have this bias that is so just so bad, right? And I think the other component that is crucial is for venture capital firms to understand they need to have representation from women, right? As I was mentioning to you before we started this interview, at Alexia Ventures, we have 8 people working, half of them are men, half of them are women, and we all come from different backgrounds and perspective. We believe that set of diverse backgrounds and opinions on the table matter. And I think, again, not only do they matter, people, women need to be encouraged to speak out loud in favor also of other women, and we understand each other, right? And so what are the real aspects that we are looking for? And I think every firm needs to do that homework, and talk about biases. The other thing we did very recently was a workshop on understanding those biases. There are tons of different biases that we have, right? And then we don't even realize. So getting educated about which are those, and actually acting against them, I think that this is our responsibility as investors.
Yeah, right. I mean, a workshop from the VC itself gives out a great signal in the market that, okay, the firm itself is speaking about it. So there's no chance that I can even think about a bias existing in the surrounding. So I think that's a great initiative that every VC fund, for that matter, should take. And in that workshop, if I may, what kind of people had you invited to join in?
This was an internal workshop. So we had a fellow working with us, who had actually already provided this workshop to other organizations. And so he spoke to all of us in the team, and shared his perspective on, what are the things that we should be looking at in terms of in terms of, ensuring that there isn't a bias.
Yeah. So is he like an open speaker who is open to taking workshops at other places also?
I can absolutely ask him. He's an entrepreneur himself.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be good if you can help me with his LinkedIn profile and I can get in touch with him for our workshop.
Ah, I'd be happy to connect you to
Yes.
him.
Yes, cool. Okay, moving on. I mean, not just about pitching, but when we speak of ambitious women having the confidence to even speak of their targets, like I'm wanting to make this 100 crore brand, for example, it's not taken in the positive stride by some of the male investors, at least, who are sitting on the table. They're like, isn't it too an ambitious target to achieve? How will you raise your family? Because you're at the cusp of raising a family plus, building your business. But a men is never asked that question. So how is it that we can tackle with this kind of a mindset?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm a believer that, of course, right, the earlier you are in your journey, the more you have to show show tangible aspects that will make an investor trust you as a founder, right? And VCs are all about pattern recognition. So I think that I love pattern recognition when we talk about metrics and when we talk about trends in an industry. I am very cautious about pattern recognition in regards to a founder's background, or or does he or she look like, or what, right, the kind, or the ways that body language, or the ways that they communicate. I think on that end, I'm much more of an advocate that we need to be open for different ways and different styles of not only communication but of, right, of backgrounds. Otherwise we will be just fulfilling this legacy of investing in the same kind of people, right? So I think again it goes towards the bias of, we need to be aware of those, and step back and understand, okay, what are the things that we're looking for. And if a woman founder is raising, let's say, a series A round, and so there's already clear there are signs of product market fit, so she can already mention, how the product differentiates itself from others, or how will she tackle that market, and but just showing clear examples, very tangible ones. And women are great at that. I think that this is where she should hone in and focus on, right, like showing by clear examples of how, why are you unique, why is your product and your company unique. And the more you have those signs, I think that you can use those as the arguments, right, to win over a VC and potentially get that investment.
Yeah, but don't you think that being in this competition of being unique, it really sometimes deviates you from your original path of thinking, because you don't really have to be a disruptor altogether. Even if you are a step changer and you're doing something better for for the convenience of your users, you might still get traction and build a business on that. So on just the point you mentioned, how is it that you define uniqueness as an investor?
You know what? I love people who are original, and I love people who are able to be vulnerable. And it's actually part of our own values as a firm, to have intellectual honesty. So I think that founders need to be very honest about their trajectories, what made them passionate about that problem. And again, different backgrounds create different people and different mentalities. So everyone is different. That's one of the aspects that I most love about my job. I get to see and meet so many people in different industries every day, and people wanting to build and innovate in different fields, from climate to, healthcare to fintech to you name it. I mean, and so I think, again, women need to honor their trajectory and, their background, whichever it is, right? And understand their uniqueness, what makes them well positioned to tackle that problem. And again, there isn't a right answer. Someone who had a very humble background, again, to the example of those women who came from a very humble background in Rio de Janeiro, and as Black women with curly hair, they were uniquely positioned to create and innovate on a product, that actually was very important for a very large subset of the Brazilian population. And so honing in those skills and honoring their journey, that they are the ones who are going to do that, that is important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, uniqueness so comes by your being, I mean, your characteristics, your values, and your background more than the business and the product, because you're the one who's developing the business, and it's not like a robot leading it. So it's the people over the business that you consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say that we are a people business, right? We can analyze metrics and understand growth patterns, but after all, we are betting on people, right? And especially on the early stage, this is very important.
Right. And why do you think that sometimes younger women, especially, do you also face this in your firm, that they're very hesitant to ask questions if they have something in their mind? Whereas if a male would want to ask you something, he would openly come to you and ask, tell me this, how is it done? But a woman will think twice, thrice, and then approach you. Has it ever happened in your own firm?
Yeah, it has. I think that we are taught to be this way, right? Especially in paternalistic societies such as Brazil, or I don't know if India is just like we are, but here there is a very important challenge to overcome. And I think women are taught that they need to be polite and they need to be very, timid and very, and be in their, I just don't know, in their own position there as much more to serve the family than to be the leader of a family, of a business. So I think breaking those paternalistic mindset and viewpoints and being able to also, I don't think that women need to act like men. I think that they need to act genuinely, right? And try to be to act on their behalf and as much as possible. So I think this is something you learn. And again, going back to the examples, I think that showing examples of how other women have succeeded by being themselves, not necessarily needing to act like a man, but also breaking some of those molds. I think that that's important, right? Because we've been taught a lot of those concepts that are not necessarily true. They're just societal, and historical aspects that we need to change, right?
Yeah. So just curious to know, is this how you also tell your younger women who sometimes have this hesitation? Is this the kind of explanation that they also get to break that kind of, conventional thinking and move ahead?
I think so. I mean, and again, my own filters, this is the way I have approached, and I think that I have been able, look, as a leader, I am not someone who wants to be, I very much like teamwork and to be, focused on the harmony of a team and to listen to people's opinions. And like, I think I need to be at my best in showing the way that I believe, leadership needs to come across, and how I think I'm best positioned to grow in my career. But everyone is different, right? So again, what I'm saying, I think we shouldn't be just trying to mold ourselves to a particular leadership that is very male, with male characteristics. I think that we need to own up to who we are and try to be the best in that way, in a very genuine way.
Yeah, yeah. Your natural self always helps you foster better in any environment than adopting everything from everyone.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
But do you think sometimes women tend to get more aggressive than what they are, or ruthless just to fit into a room where they see aggression?
I think so. Again, I think that potentially women can try to adapt themselves to that environment. and and again, sometimes you need to be a bit more aggressive in your communication just because it's the context asks for it. But again, but still, I don't think you should change. My point being, you shouldn't change yourself. I think sometimes good leaderships, they adapt to the context that you're at, right? And you need to have that chameleon mindset, but still very much within your true self, right? What's the way that you want to come across, and not necessarily wanting to mold a male behavior.
Yeah, yeah, that's the right way to think, that context matters more than any other person. If you think that if something is good enough for you, then go for it. It doesn't matter how others are speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but have you been yourself a part of any other mentoring forums or any women forum apart from the one you mentioned earlier, now or earlier in your part of your career?
Yeah, I am part again, besides Kaufman Fellows, which is right a network of VCs. I am part of a group of venture capitalists and investors in general, female investors from Latin America, and we are a group that is always interacting over WhatsApp. And again, whenever we have a chance, we also we gather up, we meet at events, and we try to foster each other's careers and share best practices. So it happens in a very organic, natural way. And I think whenever we need something from each other, there's another network that I'm part of that is from former staff members from Endeavor, and only female former staff members. And we help each other, I would say, not even with careers, but also with our personal lives, and how to actually balance out our different roles, as as wives, as moms, as and so different conversations there, which I think are very important for women also to have. So
Yeah, yeah, always that emotive aspect goes hand in hand with your work as well. And it's important to discuss the both so as to strike a right balance and not, lose your balance on one for the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but I have spoken on this with other women leaders also, that we have a lot of groups for women founders, investors, but do we have specifically any group for women GPs or fund managers? Because we don't likely see that.
Yeah. Well, so this group that I'm part of, I wouldn't say it's only GPs, but we are all in the investment space. Most of us in the venture capital, some of us in the private equity space, so on the later stage. But and it's all of us from Latin America. So I really enjoy being part of this group, and it's great to see it growing every day.
Yeah.
And now that we're back with events post pandemic, like so many of us are meeting up and around the globe. So some of us were in Mexico last week, and Colombia 2 weeks ago, and in New York at an event for Latin American Venture Capital Association. So we share a lot, I would say, both on digitally, but also whenever we see each other.
Yeah, I can already see the excitement on your face while you speak about it as to how much of a benefit would it be giving. But like you said earlier, that networking is the biggest part of your career, where you get to learn about the deals in the market, source deals, and make connections and relationships. But sometimes women tend to feel difficult to do that also, because sometimes it's a harsh reality though. And forbid me if you haven't faced it, but that's the general thing, that sometimes your meetings with male counterparts turn into dates, and that's what makes women feel uncomfortable. So how is it that you can really network in a group of both men and women with a sense of security and purpose?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Um, I think it's important. Look, women are aware of this unfortunate dynamics, right? So I think that trying your best to it might be, again, might sound simplistic, but try your best to be around people you trust. And there are many, and if someone comes across as someone who would break those very important values, and not make you feel in a safe space, run from it, right? And I think that that's pretty important. We're dealing with people, so just there are great networks of people who want to support and welcome women and make them grow. I don't think, potentially not all of them are like that, but you, as long as we know our value and that we are very, you know, true to it, to those, I think that it's important. And even if it means stepping away from what would seem like an opportunity, it won't be, right? You just don't want to be close to those people. So again, I feel very fortunate. I know that I cannot speak from a position of underprivileged in this matter, but finding networks like Endeavor, then Kaufman Fellows, like Female Force, finding networks of people who nurture you and support you and make you feel safe is crucial.
Yeah, and that again boils down to having the right mentor who can guide you on the right path and whom you can share all of your instances with, you know. But how have you ever had different mentors in different stages of your careers? And if yes, how did you find them? Because it's just as difficult as finding a co-founder for your business, you know.
Yes, and I am one. I'm a promoter. I just, I encourage everyone to have mentors throughout their careers, and you don't need to have them, you know, engaged with you throughout your whole life. I think it's actually even better if you establish a very specific time frame and you're very upfront and you're very proactive about reaching out and mentioning why you need that support and being vulnerable. And again, it's a matter of understanding if people also hit it off and they can, you know, learn from each other, because I do believe mentors learn from their mentees as well. It's a win-win situation there.
Yeah, it's a
So I,
reverse mentoring kind of a relationship.
it is. I, most of the mentors I've worked with, or I've seen mentors work with founders through Endeavor, and they would always say, "I learn more than I, you know, I get more than I give." Just I love this relationship in which you both win there and can learn from each other. So I know it's difficult. I think some mentors, especially earlier on in my career, I had met once or I've seen them at an event, and I honestly, I think it's important to just be bold and reach out in a genuine way and say, look, this is who I am. I would love to be very respectful of their time and be very open that if they cannot engage, it's completely fine. You're not imposing anything, but by just being yourself and sharing what is your struggle and potentially searching for someone who you know had that same struggle at a different point in their career, that this creates a link, a bond immediately. So people who are able and willing to mentor, I'm sure they will have a predisposal to say, oh, maybe, okay, great, you know. And the other thing, hack that I just think it's important is, as I was saying, establishing a specific time frame. Look, I don't want your time forever. Can we meet 3 times, like in 3 months, and just have a bit of a project here, and like, and the final tip here is to always get back to mentors with what you have learned, where you are at, what you have been able to accomplish because of them, because that is where they feel very fulfilled and say, you know, I have had an impact in someone's life. And most of the mentors that I've had throughout my life, even if the mentorship period had ended, we became friends later on and they became champions for me, you know. So I believe a good network is one that you accumulate, and those people become part of your life in different ways. So again, as you see, I am a believer, I'm a promoter. I think everyone should look for mentors in different moments of their career. And even if you don't have the networks to access them, you can reach out to them in a very genuine way. And even if you get some no's, eventually you will get someone who will be at the same, you know, moment in their lives that they can engage.
Yeah, and they'll say yes to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'll just move into the last segment of our interview, which is rapid fire round, where I'll ask you questions about the work you do and how founders can approach you and what are the qualities that you look for in founders. Starting up with my first question for the rapid fire, how is it that one can approach your firm for funding?
Yeah, so You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I always respond to someone who reaches out on LinkedIn. You can also, yeah, reach out by look at our website, www.alexia.vc, and we have an email also for you to send your pitch deck or to introduce yourself.
That also brings me to the second question, that you might be receiving so many pitch decks because of course you are the capital provider. How is it that you really filter out what is the uniqueness or some valuable element that you look for in any founder message?
Yeah. The why is the most important aspect. Why you? Why this business? Why now? And I think, and just besides that, just seeing that people are passionate, they really know. They might not know the answer to all questions, but they know their why, and they know that they want to learn from you. Just having that perspective, I think, matters a ton.
Got it. And which is one of the most interesting pitches of all times. I'm sure that you can't undermine one founder pitch because everyone for themselves is interesting. But what is it that really has stuck your mind till date and you really remember about that pitch?
Oh, I honestly, the pitches I love the most are those that are genuine and passionate, but also that are a two-way road. And and founders are as willing to share what they know and what they are building, as well as ask you about your fund and what kind of value add you had. So to me, those are the most memorable ones, are the ones that I engage the most when it's a conversation. And I had some examples of several that are like that, but I'd say that this aspect is important. So think about the aspect that it's not only the fund who's choosing you, you're also choosing the fund.
Yeah, right. When it comes to choosing, why should any founder choose your fund over anybody else? What are some of the strategic value adds that y'all provide with?
Yeah, well, so important to say, Alexia Ventures focuses on SaaS, B2B, on data intelligence, and on blockchain, mostly on the infrastructure side of things. So a lot of technical founders that we like to help build their go-to-market strategy, and we are focused on LATAM as well. So that's important. We like to see Latin American founders building global technology. The most important aspect of value add, I would say, is the fact that all of us come from an entrepreneurial perspective. Some of us have been entrepreneurs ourselves. Some of us have worked at organizations that supported entrepreneurs. I also worked at a scale up. So we really like to be close to founders and to help them throughout their life cycle, throughout their journey, not only in the business, but as founders. We take board seats on Series A rounds, which we lead or co-lead. And we also have a network of founders who are investors in Alexia. So we consider ourselves a network-based VC. And so this aspect, we are talking about network throughout this conversation. We really believe in networks. And so having that extended number of people who are founders who have been there and can not only help with mentoring, but also potentially co-investing alongside Alexia in the deals that we lead or co-lead. That's a very important part of our value add.
Got it. And is it only LATAM that you focus on or other geographies as well?
We would invest in founders from other regions, but I would say that a link to Latin America is important. So either the founders are from Latin America or they have a go-to-market strategy that tackles Latin America, because we want to add value, as I was mentioning, and our network is mostly here. I myself at Endeavor have worked with other regions as well, but we have those connections. But I think we are stronger in the places where we have mostly worked and where we have more network.
Got it. So it's okay if a founder is from Singapore, India, Africa, just should have some presence in Latin America also in terms of customers.
Sure.
Got it, got it. And what are some of the red flags that just doesn't sit well with you once you invest in any founder or any business and you notice that, okay, this is happening, but it really doesn't work, need to do something about it?
Yeah, I would mention two. I would mention a couple. The first one, and we've seen in some cases, and potentially, and this is the most important one, when you realize that the founders are not coachable and they really believe that they know it all. I mean, a fund is there not only to provide you money, but also to provide you access to knowledge and conversations, and to potentially, to be constructive about it. We say we're not running the business, we support the founders with it, but you need to be open to it. So again, intellectual honesty is one of our most important values. But the second one, more, and I think it also matters. We've seen sometimes founders pitch us and they don't really have a clear idea of their addressable market, and you see numbers like you need to know your numbers. And so I think that this is a red flag as well. So you need to be very confident that you have done your homework.
Got it. And do you prefer investing in solo founders, or you really would like a co-founder to be in place?
Yeah, look, there are different ways in which you can start a business. I would just say that starting a business solo is much harder. This is a very tough journey, and I think not every founder has all the capabilities within herself, within himself. So we tend to prefer teams that complement themselves, right? Complement each other, and people who have work together. I think it's also a great sign. It doesn't need to be this way, but they know each other and the dynamics are already there. This is positive, I would say.
Yeah. And have you ever witnessed a situation where you had to pull out of an investment because it turned out to be not so good for you or for the investor return or any other reason? Did that ever happen?
No, I mean, again, I think when we invest in businesses, even if, of course, and we've had situations in which, we're investing in early stage, if the founders are, the company has an early exit, or if there's a write-off, the important thing is to always support the founder. I think that, again, it's a lonely journey, and if we are good investors, I think that we cannot just shy away from our responsibility to with the founders, look for the best exit scenario in such a case. And if the growth is not there, something comes up. But I think that being close to founders and searching for it together, this is important.
Got it. But what if the founder doesn't want you to get close with him? Like you mentioned that, the founder not being coachable is one of the red flags. What do you do in that case? I'm sure that it must or must not have happened, but if it happens, what do you do?
Yeah, well, we need to reflect and understand where we got it wrong, because I think the selection matters. And if we end up selecting someone who's not coachable, doesn't want to work with us, I think that's a true problem. Then we will, I mean, again, we're very early fund, right? We have 2 years of operations, and of course the co-founders and myself, we worked with founders in our previous lives, but at Alexia, this fortunately hasn't happened yet. But I would say that then it would be important to understand if it makes sense for us to be part of that journey for a longer period of time and discuss it. And if there's an opportunity to leave the investment, then potentially be it. But fortunately, it hasn't happened just yet.
Yeah. And fortunately, it won't happen. I'm just praying to God. But what kind of check sizes do you offer? You said that you come at the seed stage. So what are the check size range that a founder can look at from your fund?
Actually, our sweet spot are Series A rounds, in which we lead or co-lead with check sizes from $2 to $5 million. But we have a small percentage of our fund. It's an $85 million fund that we allocate to seed program, and we've made most of those investments up until now. The idea of the seed program is to potentially be preemptive at a Series A round and just follow the founders closer. And for this program, the seed one, our check sizes are from $100,000 to $1 million, and then we can follow. We're not leading or co-leading those rounds.
Got it. And what's the main fund size corpus?
Sorry?
What's the main fund scopus? You said $85 million is for this fund?
This is $85 million fund. Yeah, we'll most likely fundraise a next one soon, but we're still deploying the capital for this one. Yeah.
Got it. And how many deals do you look at on an average on a monthly or a yearly basis?
Yearly basis, I'd say 1,500. give or take. So, but we, yeah,
How
and
much
we've
how
invested.
much do you end up investing in?
Yeah, we end up investing. I'd say we have invested in 23 companies up until now. Or most likely we will invest in 10 more
Okay, until your next fundraise.
until, yes.
Got it. And what are some of the founder qualities that you really admire when they're pitching?
Um, the founder market fit, I think, matters a lot. So as I was mentioning, showing very clearly how your trajectory matches the problem that you're tackling, and how you're uniquely positioned um, to win this industry, this segment. I like pitches that are direct, succinct, and that have a lot of visuals and good storytelling and good narrative. And again, an openness for a conversation. You need to, yes, you need to have a pitch and potentially in a 10-minute, 15, but I always appreciate the conversation. And I love actually when founders, their eyes sparkle and get bright when you ask questions that they are going through, tackling with at the moment. And so people who appreciate the exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, but what are some of the reasons as to why some of the portfolio companies can't achieve something that they have set out for themselves? Why can't they really aim for those targets that they have gleam in their eyes for, like you said?
Um, Sometimes founders can become their own obstacles. So I would say that um, from my experience, companies that haven't been able to grow appropriately, it has been because founders have not been able to grow at the same pace as the company or the opportunity. So it's really important to know what are your skills and how to actually surround yourselves with the right talent. So I think talent attraction, as well as capital attraction. So having the ability to attract both capital and talent are skills that founders need to have. They can't. It comes to a point when you cannot do it all, of course, and you have to have a very good team, people who potentially will be better than you. And so having that perspective too, and low ego to really build an incredible team. I think that this is the key point. And companies that I've seen that have not been able to grow appropriately, potentially founders lack that ability.
Got it. And looking internally, how is it that you hire at your firm? What qualities do you look for in your associates who work with portfolio companies or look for good portfolios?
Yeah, first and foremost, true passion and empathy towards entrepreneurs. And I think this idea also of intellectual honesty matters a ton to our team. Like, we need to know that we're not the smartest in the room. We need to know that we're there mostly to ask the right questions and guide with our thoughts, but never to be absolute in our positions. I think that we have a lot of experience to share with them, but I think these components, like from truly a personality perspective, we really strive to look for in our teammates. And then just the willingness to learn, right? I love that my job, that it's all about learning every day. We're learning about different industries, about different profiles of founders, about different strategies for growth strategies. So you need to be willing to learn and to put on the work for it.
And do you also look for a degree or just a smart candidate is enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that degrees are welcomed, and they are very, and they vary. I don't think we ask for a particular like engineering or business degree, but of course, coming with potentially, what we do value, and I would say, is having had an entrepreneurial experience in the past, be it, you have had your own company, or you worked for a startup, or you worked for an organization that supports startups. Just having that capacity to deal with entrepreneurs and to understand the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think that matters a ton to us, as well as analytical skills, right? Like we need to understand that can really analyze a different industry every day, and the financial analysis. The financial analysis is most of it you actually learn, but especially for the entry roles. But I think that at least having that ability is really important.
Got it. And how often is it that you hire for your team? Because I know that you can't hire beyond maybe 10 people, for example. It's VC funds operate like that. What's the team size at your fund?
We are 8 people right now, and I would say that we're a small fund. I think right now we really are able to cover all of our bases with 8 people. We have fellowship programs, so we've had welcome 3 fellows throughout the past 1.5 years who have conducted different projects for us. So we welcome that as well.
But in 8 people, you said that you evaluate about 1,500 deals a year. How is it that you manage? I mean, it's a question that I asked to myself. How do VC funds manage to see so many pitches with just such less number of team? I mean, one person would be equal to 100 people in, in VC funds, I'm assuming.
It's a challenge. I think managing time is one of the most important skills for us. But of course, when I mention 1,500, I'm mentioning the entire funnel. And we have to be very good at, again, understanding, okay, out of the 1,500 that we see, which of them really align to our thesis, and then which founders we really want to speak to. So yeah.
But no, my last question to you is that how did this name come up? Alexia, what does it indicate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Alexia Ventures means the helper of mankind, and it speaks so much to our values. As I was mentioning to you, we don't believe we are the ones running the show. We're here to help founders, incredible founders, be better and grow. So I really like the name. I think it speaks to what we believe.
Yeah, I mean, these days VC funds are having such unique names. I was speaking to an Australian fund manager by the name of Flying Fox, and I just couldn't understand how did the name come up. Then she told me it's like an creature who, when they fly, they drop down the pollen on the flowers and they help them grow. So because of their seed, they grow. So that's how they do. They provide seed capital to founders, which helps them grow. It's like a very different analogy that people use to name their funds, and I was very curious to know about yours also. So I asked about it. But yeah, with this, we come to the end of the interview. Really great speaking with you, hearing your thoughts, understanding your insights, your experiences. Thanks for your time. And I'm sure when the audience watches this, they will be very happy to see and hear what you've said.
Thank you, Radhika. I really appreciate the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks.